Talk already. Turn, if you would, to Joshua chapter 2. That's where we'll be today. Start at verse 1. And then Joshua, son of Nun, secretly sent 2 spies from Shittim. Go look over the land, he said, especially Jericho. So they went and entered the house of a prostitute named Rahab and stayed there. The king of Jericho was told, look, some of the Israelites have come here tonight to spy out the land. So the king of Jericho sent his message to Rahab. Bring out the men who came to you and entered your house, because they have come to spy out the whole land. But the women had taken the 2 men and hidden them, and she said, yes, the men had came to me, but I did not know where they had come from. At dusk, when it was time to close the city gate, the men left. I don't know which way they went. So after them quickly. You may catch up with them. But she had taken them up to the roof and hidden them under the stalks of flax she had laid out on the roof. And so the men set out in pursuit of the spies on the road that leads to the fords of the Jordan. And as soon as the pursuers had gone out, the gate was shut. Before the spies lay down for the night, she went up on the roof and said to them, I know that the Lord has given this land to you, and that a great fear has fallen on us, so that all who live in this country are melting in fear because of you. We've heard now how the Lord dried up the waters of the Red Sea for when you came out of Egypt, and what you did to Sihon and Og, the 2 kings of the Amorites east of the Jordan, whom you completely destroyed. When we heard of it, our hearts melted, and everyone's courage failed because of you. For the Lord your God is God in heaven above and on the earth below. Now then, please swear to me by the Lord that you will show kindness to my family, because I have shown kindness to you. Give me a sure sign that you will spare the lives of my father, my mother, my brothers and sisters, all who belong to them, and that you will save us from death. Our lives for your lives, the men assured her. If you don't tell what we're doing, we will treat you kindly and faithfully when the Lord gives us the land. And so she let them down by a rope through the window, for the house she lived in was part of the city wall. Now she had said to them, go to the hills, and so the pursuers will not find you. Hide yourself there 3 days until they return, and then go your way. Lord, we thank you for the day you've given us. We thank you for the opportunity to study your word. Guide us in all things and help us to apply it in our lives. Your son. Okay, I was not here last week, so I'm not 100% sure how much back story we got. So I'm going to touch on a few things real quick, kind of review about some things that have taken place. I've taken the liberty of doing something I don't normally do. Hopefully it works. How do you wake this up?
Pour coffee on it.
Do you push the button up here?
I just unblank the screen.
No, your computer went to sleep.
All you have to do is hit the space bar.
Space bar.
Yeah.
Oh, there it is. That's what I wanted to know. Everybody else said pour coffee on it. All right.
That doesn't work on mine.
In the book of Numbers, we find that the children of Israel were getting ready to come out of Israel, getting ready to go up into the promised land. As they came up, they were blocked by Edom, which is, I'm going to try to show you, this is not as good as I had hoped. I decided to use Google Earth to kind of give us a different perspective. Maybe you can see what it looks like. And the problem is it's probably not very good detail-wise, as I can tell here. So if your eyes are blurry, it's probably not you. Basically, south here, down here, in this area, the Red Sea was the Edom, which was a brother of Jacob, which is Israel. Okay, his brother the Edomites. They would not allow Israel to come up along the edge of the Dead Sea and up through there. They blocked them, and they went out with a force to stop them, as a matter of fact. So they ended up going around them through the land of Moab. Right here, you see this river here. To the south of this is Moab. In Moab, they basically, yes.
In the back where the brook,
Yes.
that 3 37,
Yes.
37, has all that, exactly what you're talking about.
Not exactly, but it is a good guide that you can use that's up close. Go ahead and pull that up if you want. And you can continue to look at it. It doesn't have a lot of the detail, but it does have a lot of information. Matter of fact, I've written all over mine. I might even take a picture of it next week. Anyway, south of this is Moab right here. And what they did is they had to come around instead of coming up the nice, easy road along the shores of the Great Salt Sea or Dead Sea, which is fairly flat and even. They were forced to go through the hills. As they went through the hills of Moab, we remember how Balaam interacted with them and some things. When they crossed into this land, this is the land right here that belongs to the Amorites. We just read in here how Rahab they had all heard about them crossing the Red Sea 40 years ago, but they also recently heard how they had defeated the kings of the Amorites. Right here, this area right here is where the first battle took place. I think it was Sion, took place there. The other one went all the way to the north on the eastern area, up in this area right in here. Okay? I'll show it better next week. Sorry about that. On your map, there's up in the upper right-hand corner, there's a town that's called Eli or Ejai or something like that. That's basically where the other king was from. So it was all on the eastern shore of the Jordan River. It only went about this far inland, though, right here, because everything back past that was Ammon, the Ammonites. Today, we have a city called Ammon. It is the capital of what country? Jordan. So basically today, that Jordan River separates Palestine from Jordan. As a matter of fact, one of the river crossings where, right in the Jericho area, is one of the border crossings. So we're looking at this. They came up after they went through Moab, and they defeated the Ammonites on the eastern side. The Bible says, if you go to Numbers, and it's in Deuteronomy, that they could not go any farther east because these Ammonites had fortified cities and were too strong. So basically, they took this section right here along the Jordan River Valley, which is what you see here that's dark. That's actually more green than the rest of it. And then up to the hills and everything on this side. And that formed the 2.5 tribes of, remember? Reuben, Gad, and the half tribe of Manasseh. All right, basically, down here where this river was, I showed you, from that river, which is Arnon, I think it's called, all the way up to the next river right there is where you'll find Reuben and Gad. And then above that you'll find the half tribe of Manasseh. So they had taken these tribes, they had defeated them, then they had turned around and came back to a place. Let me find well, before I do that, let me show you something else. That's what I want to show you here too. This here, you have to look real close. It's light. Another one. It's hard to get clarity. One thing about Israel, when we went over there, it's so hazy. The humidity is in the air so thick, it is hazy for any distance to see. If you look closely, you can see that's the Dead Sea at the northern edge right there. And on the far side is the hills and the mountains or whatever, which would have been the territory that Reuben would take over. Okay? It's where Sidon, I think that's the name, terrible pronunciation, was king of that particular area, the Amorites. This is another one moving, panning a little bit more toward the north. And then right here, this is on the northern edge. I don't know if you can see or not, but right there is a peak. That is Mount Nebo. What happened to Mount Nebo? Where Moses looked over into the Promised Land, looked over the Dead Sea, the very high point. You looked over, and you could look over on the mountains on the other side to where all of Canaan was. And at that point, he saw everything, and we find that God took him. All right? At that time, after that took place, the children of Israel were camped right in this area here, which is at the foot of Mount Nebo, at the southern point where the Jordan River dumps into the Dead Sea. That's a place that is called Shittim, which really means archaea wood. It's archaea, not wood, that's a wood. I want to say bale, but that isn't the correct, trees. Basically, it's like a forest of these type of trees, or an area where this has these trees that are subtropical that grow in that plain right there. And that's basically where they set up camp, which is not too far from across the river from Jericho. And that's all Shittim means. And that may be, they named the place that, which is very common, to name it after an object, or it may just say, well, over in the trees is where they hunt and they stay. So we find all of Israel basically stayed there. What you're looking at here is the Jordan River Valley on farther north. It's not what I pictured when I went there. It's very desolate, except right down in the middle where the river is. And it's very green in certain places along through that valley. And it's very cut up, like in our west. Arrows, A-R-R-O-Y, how do you say that? What's that word?
Arroyo.
Say that again?
Arroyo.
Yeah, that. It's very much like that. There are all these big ditches that all come together, and of course during the rainy season, the flood season, they all flash floods. Everything comes from the mountains and it comes through, and it makes it pretty rough territory. But basically, it's very desert-like. This would be part of that area that the Amorites, that they took all the way up to, almost to the Sea of Galilee on the eastern shore. There's a river up there, it starts a little Y, goes off to the east. And that's basically as far as they went, and that's basically where the Jordanian border is today. All right. Let's see where I'm at now. Okay, there is what it looks like. See how it's all cut up and all those different valleys and rivers and everything that go through this particular area here. All right. So after that, they're camped across the river at this grove of trees. And they're camped here, and that's where we take it up in chapter 2. Chapter 1 last week, when we looked at, we talked about the fact that God spoke to Joshua, and gave him the commission to lead the people into Canaan. He said, Moses is dead. Now you're in charge. You're going to be the general and lead us into the land. God promises to be with him every step of the way. Just be there, and he encouraged him just to be strong, be courageous, be faithful, be obedient, and God would be there with him. So God gives him this challenge, which we find many times throughout the Bible that he does with those that he puts in charge. He commissions them and blesses them and encourages them and tells them what he's going to do, and he tells them what he expects out of them. On Wednesday night we looked at Ezekiel, and several weeks ago we saw how God had to drag him and say, yes, you're going to do it. You know, this is what you're going to do, and you better do it because here's the pain you're going to suffer if you don't. Ezekiel needed a little more prodding than Joshua did. Well, we find in Joshua chapter 2, verse 1, that Joshua needed a little bit of encouragement as well. So he tells them to get ready to move in 3 days. We're going to move, and we're going to go across. He tells those Jordanian tribes, the three we just talked about on the east side of the Jordan, remember the commitment you made. You have to go fight for all your brothers. Otherwise, God's going to take that land away from you. So he tells them that they got to go with him, and the people make a commitment to obey him. In chapter 2, verse 1, we find that Joshua does something. What does he do? He sends out 2 spies. All right, so he sends them out from these trees, which we've already described as being across the Jordan River from Jericho. Let's see if I can. Right here is at the foot of Mount Nebo, and over here is Jericho. You can see the distance and all the cut up terrain and everything that we just showed you some pictures of what it looks like. So when we talk about Jericho, we start saying, okay, I don't know what your view of Jericho was, but mine, when I got there, was totally different from, reality was totally different from what I envisioned. The reality is, all around there is rugged. See how brown it is? This is a satellite view. A rugged terrain, but Jericho itself, look how green that is. Jericho is an oasis. There are springs and fed and all that comes up there, and so it's an oasis in the desert. As a matter of fact, in the New Testament, something important took place in this desert. Anybody know what that was? Jesus went,
Be baptized?
actually, he went through the desert over across the river on the east side of the Jordan, where John the Baptist was, to be baptized. You can see what they think the traditional site is, basically across from Jericho. But up the mountains in this region right here is a Judean wilderness. It's the place where Jesus was taken and tempted for 40 days and 40 nights. So this is a very critical place in history or whatever as far as God is concerned. And so we look at this, and so Jericho's right in the middle of this, and it is green as can be, and trees and lush. And we'll look at Jericho a little more when we go to attack it and take it on. We'll show a few more pictures of it. But basically, it is this particular area. They call it an oasis. You will find that the actual site right here is basically where everything is torn out, but you got this big city all around it right now. That was still a fairly large area then. There it is. There's pictures of it. This is what it looks like. You know, and all that desert that you saw, this is what it looks like. And you literally drive from the desert and then just pop in all this green and everything that's around there. All right, back to the Bible. I wanted to kind of, since I had some information on it, kind of give you a little bit of a view that's a little different from what we have to envision in our minds. Because a lot of times we read the Bible, we have to kind of fill in the blanks of what we think it's like until you actually see some stuff. So I wanted to kind of try to do that, and we'll do that throughout the quarter a little bit here and there as we go along. So he sends out 2 spies. What do we know about that, sending out the 2 spies that's unique about them? Have they sent spies out before? Yeah, about 40 years before that, hadn't they? As a matter of fact, Joshua was one of them, wasn't he? I think I heard somebody say that. Joshua was one of those 12. Oops. How many were there? 12. How did they select those spies last time? One from each tribe. Moses had them select a representative from each tribe. How did Joshua select? Secretly. Joshua chose 2 men secretly. I think that's important because we got 2 different outcomes on the different things. When Joshua does it, he secretly sent them out. He chose them, not the people. Joshua was not a farmer. Joshua was a military warrior general. Generals don't go, okay, everybody just pick one out of that corner, out of that corner, out of that corner, out of that corner, and let's send you guys out, do they? No. He also did it secretly. It was not about what the people knew, it was about what he wanted to know. He wanted to know what the situation was, and he wanted it to be a secret thing. Not information for the people. When Moses sent out the 12, he sent out a representative. And that representative went out to evaluate and come back and make a report. Okay, it's kind of like, and I always think of it this way. Do you know how many legislators, senators, House of Representatives, or representatives from the House, actually went on to become president? Virtually none. There may have been one, I can't remember, but I do know it's virtually none. You know how many governors went on to be president? Many. You know how many generals went on to be president? Many. Why? It's a different job. See, when the lawgiver, Moses sent out people, he was trying to get consensus. He was trying to get people to come back and tell the people what we need to do. And of course, God was behind that. That's what he wanted to do. And I'm not saying one way is better, it's just different. Joshua, on the other hand, was getting ready to fight a battle, and he had a different motive. His was to go get the job done. And I need specific information. So he secretly sends out 2 men to do that. To get specific information, not just on Canaan, but on Jericho. That was his first target. That's the first battle. I've got to get tactical information. I'm not the military, several of you are, but you understand what I'm talking about. All right, so he gets specific information. Jericho, as we saw and see here, these are some of the ruins of Jericho that have been excavated and dug back, and it goes back thousands of years before it was actually destroyed. It was a walled city on the west side of Jordan across from this tree grove. As we mentioned, it was really an oasis. Of course, the whole oasis was not inside the city walls. Just like in England during the medieval times or whatever, you had the castle, the protected place, and then you had all the rest going on outside, didn't you? But whenever there was a battle or there was a problem, what happened? Everybody came inside the city, they shut the city gates, and they went to fight. It was no different then than it is during those times, medieval times, or things that we think about. And that's basically what they did. So you got this large oasis that people farmed and took care of and lived and carried business on, and then you had the actual metropolitan center, which was inside the city walls itself. That's where the king of Jericho actually resided. All right? It was at a crossroads. See if I can pull that map up again. I want to show you something. All right? It's at a crossroads. What you have here is, to the east, you have all these fords. See how this is to where you can cross. Matter of fact, the Bible calls it the fords of Jericho. There's places you can cross and go east to the places of the Ammonites, the Amorites, the Moabites, all into that particular side of the Jordan. You can go west. If you go up this valley here, you head toward what is modern-day Jerusalem. If you head up this valley here, you head toward a place we're going to talk about later called Ai, Shechem, some other places up there. In addition to that, it was on the north-south run on this side of the Jordan, which is very flat, very level. As we drove it, we understood exactly why many of Jesus' trips, he came over to the Jordan all the way from Nazareth, and he came down the Jordan River, and then came back up to Jerusalem, because it's a whole lot easier to walk. Because it's basically flat from the Sea of Galilee to Jericho. So that's the easiest route. So you have that north-south route, east-west route, everything goes through Jericho. And so that was the primary access point that they were going to come into in order to enter the land of Canaan. And basically would enter, and they would be able to go up this way and this way from Jericho. So it's an important location. They went there to check it out. We find that while they were there, the spies went and entered into the house of Rahab. I think that was interesting. I didn't really realize it until I said it again this week or whatever. Because I knew she helped them, and I knew that, but it never dawned on me that the Bible says they went there. Not as a, I'm in trouble, but they went there. Rahab was what? A prostitute. The Bible says prostitute. We find Josephus calls her an innkeeper. There's a debate about it. The reality is, in many ways, those are the same, are they not?
Just next year, is it full service or not?
Exactly. Exactly. But probably, since the Bible called her that, she probably was that, but she also had an inn. It was probably a brothel, it was a place there. No, where was it located? On the wall, with a window on the outside. So all those upstanding young men could get out and get away before they got caught. Probably. Speculation. But this is where's their location. So we find that Rahab was there. They went to there because the easiest place to hide from the business people and everybody else that knows everybody is in a place where nobody's supposed to be seen, wouldn't you think? So there they were trying to dig up the dirt on Jericho, what was going on. So we find that they go there, they stay at the house of Rahab. And while they're there, the king of Jericho hears that there's some strangers in town. He knows that there's, how many people came out of Egypt? Was it like 600,000? Okay, I was going to say 1 million people is what I've traditionally been heard. So 600,000 men would easily be 1 million people. So just think about it. You got 1 million people camped right over here. You're over here. Are you a little nervous? When strangers come into town, they immediately thought, oh, there's a spy in town trying to figure out what we're up to. And that's what, so the king of Jericho went and tried to find them. He went up to Rahab's house because he heard that they'd gone there. And we find that Rahab says, oh yeah, they were here, but they left. And she covers for them. She hides them on the roof. The Bible says she hides them on the roof where? Among the stalks of flax. You know what there's flax? Well, I'm having trouble speaking today. It's been a while, I guess. Flax. So she was up there. They were up there hiding. What was that doing on the roof? Does anybody know? Drying. Yeah. As a matter of fact, it's a very common thing in dry areas to dry your produce, your weeds, your whatever out there. And when we was in Israel, we saw some of that didn't take place. It was laid out to dry like that. In Cuba, one of the things one of the roads we go down to Nuclear City, if I go down at a certain time of day, it is covered in grain. You just have to drive on it. I don't care, let's sweep it back up at the end of the day and put it in the bag and take it to market. Rice, whatever. It's laid out on the highway to dry. And that's basically what they do. They lay it on the roof to dry. It was common practice, so they hid them amongst all that was up there drying. So she hid them among the stalks of flax, and then she sent the king's men down to the roads and said, oh, they're leaving. They're running back over across the river. So he sent them racing down to the fords to catch them. And kind of sent them on a diversion. So after she does that, she makes a deal with them. And this is one of those poetic things in the Bible that's very interesting and very telling. It tells her feelings, her heart, her faith, everything about her. And I want to kind of go over that again and just think about it. It says, I know the Lord has given this land to you. She knew it. She wasn't guessing. She knew. I know who? All these Canaanite gods? No. The Lord. The Lord, the ruler, has given this land to you. Why? There's a great fear that's fallen upon all of us. When she says that, I was thinking Jericho, but she says all their people, not just Jericho, but all the country. Now keep in mind that the Canaanites were really a group of kings with territories that were all interlocked through family relations and cooperatives. Even though they were like the king of Jericho, he had his little territory there and all those, his own fiefdom, if you will, or whatever. So she says that as fear has fallen on us, all who live in this country are melting in fear. Every one of those Canaanites were melting in fear. We have heard, see this is important. We have heard how the Lord dried the Red Sea. Think about that. Word came that 1 million people crossed through the Red Sea on dry land and swallowed up the Egyptian army. Whoa, something's going on there. And now those people are up here knocking on your door. Okay, not only that, before they got here, she says that what you did to Sihon and Og, the two kings of the Amorites, how they utterly destroyed them and their people, as in, what was God's command? Every living being destroyed. That was God's command when He said, take the land. And so they'd already seen how they had basically obliterated the whole eastern side of the Jordan and destroyed every living person there. Would they be melting in fear? I got 1 million people sitting across the river ready to come into town, and the last place they did, they destroyed it completely. And it wasn't a town, it was an entire area up and down the eastern coast there. Our hearts melted and everyone's courage failed. Why? Because the Lord, your God, is God in heaven and on earth. She recognized something significant. She recognized power, and she was not just an alien in another country that was marked for death and destruction and obliteration, which is what God's command was. She was a harlot. She was a prostitute. She was at the bottom of the chain as far as our class or whatever it is you want to call it. She was that far down. So here she is. She's marked for it. And she says to them, swear to me by that Lord, the Lord, that you will show kindness. The word there is loving kindness. Concept, the same thing Ruth and Naomi, that loving kindness, that more than just being a friend kind of thing, but a deep desire to care about somebody. Show me this, and the men there say, okay, our lives, you give us our lives for your lives. That's the deal. And the men make that assurance. It says, we will treat you kindly and faithfully. It's not just important to be kind about it, but you got to be faithful. You got to live up to your promise, live up to your commitments, live up to what you said. And so they promise that they will do that. So she lets them down by a rope through a window. And she tells them, go to the hills so that the pursuers will not find her. Here's the hills over on the west side, right here. Matter of fact, let me show you this. There you go. This is on the west side of Jericho. As a matter of fact, that little building you see up there is a temple or a monument or something that represents where Jesus was taken to the highest mountain to look out over the land in the Judean wilderness. That's they put a religious shrine or building there or whatever. Basically, I forget what it's called now. But basically, where Jesus was supposedly taken, Satan took him there to look upon the whole world and promising the whole world. So this is the mountains that they went up to on the west side. Where were the people looking? On the east side, opposite side of the river. So they were over there looking at another place. He sent them up the mountains for 3 days to hide, which is the place Jesus didn't hide, but where he was for 40 days, 40 nights without food, water, because it's so desolate. It's nothing but rock. You can kind of see that. So she sends them out over there tells them to hide for 3 days. So after 3 days, she told Joshua, they went over and met up with him, told him everything that had happened. And Joshua's result, remember Joshua started this chapter by sending them out secretly to find out some information. And the information he got, it caused him to respond this way. The Lord has surely given the whole land into our hands. See, that's what he was still a little nervous about. I mean, he just spent 40 years in the desert because God said, yeah, no. You know, he'd already been there once, and then he spent 40 days. So he was, even though God said it, he was wanting to make sure that things, and then he goes on to say, all the people are melting in fear because of this. So he knew from that God had already put the seed of destruction in those people's hearts. They She knew what was going to happen, and it was a matter of Joshua coming in for the taking. Okay. Let's see. Any thoughts, questions? Confuse you with too much information, or? All right, I'll try to think something. Yeah.
I think
Somebody's
that
been to Jordan.
I think that there was a reason why God's plan was that they went where they went, and then the history of Rahab and everything. And I just think it's a I don't know, a reminder to us that people aren't perfect, history's not perfect. The picture that we paint, because she was in the genealogy of Christ.
It's not a final point.
And I think that a lot of people, I mean, and you said it, a prostitute's kind of down there on the totem pole of social class, but God used her, and He used her for a reason. How many people today would question or look down on, you went where? And I'm not saying that, hey, that's where we need to frequent, but the bottom line is, God's not a respecter of people. He loves all, and all have the opportunity to do good. So I think it's a lesson for everybody. Don't be judgmental, because you don't know the hearts. I mean, you see someone, you can drive down 23rd Street in Chattanooga and you know what's walking around, and how many people drive around all judgmental. I mean, she had a heart, obviously, for her family, but she respected God. Maybe it didn't show in her lifestyle or her occupation or whatever you want to call it, but she had a heart, and I just think it's a lesson for us. You don't know people until you know them, and don't be that judgmental, because you don't know how God's working through them.
Okay? Yes, sir.
I don't know if it was respect or not for God, but certainly she done told the spies all the things that had happened, that the people in Jericho know that your Lord never done this. So fear God and keep His commandments. I think the fear factor brought her to the point of helping those spies.
I agree. And one of the things that I want to finish on is the lesson part of it, what it means to me, is just like you said about Rahab. She had a wrong lifestyle probably, but she cleaned that up. And it began with the fear of the Lord. And it began by responding to what God wanted her to do and give an opportunity. The fact of the matter is, if you go to Matthew and you look at the genealogy of Christ, and you look at that, you find that she was the great-great-grandmother of David, the king that would finally take this entire land in its entirety. Grandmother, that means after her days of being a prostitute, she married a guy named Salmon, I can't remember how it's pronounced, which is, like I said, David's great-great-grandfather. And so we find that she produces the greatest king, her heritage, produces the greatest king that Israel, physical Israel, would ever know. And, as you pointed out, would produce the greatest king that spiritual Israel would ever know, Jesus Christ Himself. So it didn't matter where she came from and her background. What mattered was what she did when she recognized that God was supreme. When she recognized that, the Bible says she did something about it. And when she did something about it, then and only then we find that she goes on to basically is in God's who's who list. So that's a good point, because each and every one of us can be in that same situation. It doesn't matter where we came from. All that matters is where we're going. What we're doing about tomorrow. What we do with today to change to get ready for tomorrow. All right, any last thoughts? All right, next week we are going to cross that Jordan River. Hopefully I'll get you